It stood in the sterile boardroom, the kind of place where dreams go to die under fluorescent lights. The air was thick with the scent of polished wood and betrayal. Nathan Pierce, CEO of Horizon Dynamics, sat at the head of the table, his face a mask of corporate calm. 8 years I'd bled for this company, building Sentinel from a scrap of code into the world's most advanced cybersecurity AI. 8 years of sleepless nights, missed family dinners, and a brother's graduation I never saw. And now, Nathan's voice cut through the silence like a guillotine. Lauren, your services are no longer required. The words hit like a sucker punch. Fired? Me? The room spun, faces of board members blurring into a gallery of indifference. I'd poured my soul into Sentinel, a system so airtight it could stop a digital apocalypse. I'd missed my brother Ethan's high school graduation because I was debugging code in a server room at 3 a.m. I'd skipped my best friend's wedding to fly to Berlin for a NATO demo. And now Nathan, with his tailored suit and shark smile, was cutting me loose. Well, my voice was steady, but my hands trembled under the table. Strategic realignment, he said, not meeting my eyes. The board's decision is final. Bullshit. I'd seen the numbers. Sentinel was Horizon's crown jewel, generating 60% of their revenue. I wasn't just an employee, I was the architect of their empire. But Nathan's gaze flicked to the glass doors, where 2 security guards waited like vultures. This wasn't a discussion, it was an execution. Before I could argue, the screens behind Nathan flickered. Red alerts screamed across the displays. Sentinel's interface. A live cyber attack was hitting major banks. Transactions freezing. ATMs spitting out error codes. The boardroom erupted in chaos, suits shouting over each other. Nathan's calm cracked, his eyes darting to me. Lauren, fix it now. I could have laughed. Fired, but still their savior? My fingers itched for the keyboard, but I crossed my arms. Not my job anymore. His jaw tightened. Do it, or you'll regret it. Under duress, I logged in. My biometrics, retina scan, fingerprint, unlocked Sentinel's core. The failsafe I'd built tied to my identity hummed to life. I patched the breach in 10 minutes, rerouting the attack through a sandbox I'd coded years ago. The bank stabilized, the board exhaled. Nathan didn't thank me. Escort her out, he said. The guards grabbed my arms, their grips bruising. My colleagues lined the halls, eyes averted, as I was marched past cubicles I'd once called home. Sarah, my intern, mouthed an apology. Marcus, my supposed ally, stared at his shoes. Humiliation burned, but I kept my chin up. They'd see me again. In my pocket, the USB drive felt like a grenade. Sentinel's master key, a backup I'd kept as insurance. Nathan didn't know I had it. He didn't know a lot of things. Outside, Boston's autumn air stung my face. I made it 2 blocks before the alley ambush hit. 3 thugs, faces shadowed under hoods, blocked my path. Hand over the drive, one growled, flashing a knife. My heart jackhammered. How did they know? I bolted, dodging a grab, my ankle twisting as I sprinted into traffic. Horns blared, but I didn't stop until I reached my apartment, lungs burning, blood trickling from a scrape. My door was ajar. Inside, my world was wreckage. Drawers gutted, couch slashed, laptop smashed. I found the hidden camera in my smoke detector, its red light winking. Nathan's team. They'd been watching me. My skin crawled as I swept the place, finding 2 more bugs. I was a liability, and they were closing the noose. I barely slept, barricading the door with a chair. At dawn, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Sentinel sabotage. Lauren Carter implicated. Doctored logs showed my credentials triggering the bank attack. My stomach dropped. The FBI was at my door by 7 a.m., badges flashing, guns drawn. "You're under investigation," they said, tossing my apartment again. I was framed, and Nathan's fingerprints were all over it. And he came, the whistleblower, an encrypted email, no sender name, with proof. Nathan had sold Sentinel's access to a consortium, a shadow group of tech moguls and foreign investors. The deal was worth billions, and I was the loose end. My firing wasn't just personal, it was a cover-up. Sentinel itself was unraveling. That afternoon, its servers locked down, crashing Horizon's network hours before a NATO demo. Nathan called, his voice dripping with desperation. "Fix it, Lauren. Freelance gig. Name your price." "Reinstatement," I snapped. "Full control of Sentinel." He laughed. "Cold. You're in no position to negotiate." But I was. The USB drive was my leverage, and Sentinel's failsafe was my shield. I hung up, already planning. Marcus, my old friend, swore he'd help expose Nathan. I trusted him. My mistake. He leaked my plan to the board, thinking it was for the company. Another knife in my back. I crashed the board meeting uninvited, leaked emails in hand. Nathan's deal with the consortium glowed on the projector, his lies laid bare. The room went silent, but a board member, Claire, someone I'd once trusted, twisted the knife. She revealed her own ties to Nathan, spinning my evidence as a disgruntled employee's tantrum. The board wavered, and I was escorted out again. Tech blogs pounced, publishing doctored footage of me sabotaging Sentinel. Twitter exploded with "Fire Lauren," bots amplifying the smear. I fought back, posting a viral thread with snippets of the whistleblower's proof. It gained traction, 50,000 retweets in an hour. But Nathan played dirtier. Ethan, my brother, vanished. A grainy video showed him bound in a warehouse, Nathan's voice off-screen. "Give us the master key." I infiltrated the warehouse alone, heart pounding, dodging armed guards. Ethan was alive, barely. I got him out, but not before a guard grazed my arm with a bullet. Back home, I faced a choice: hand over the real USB or a decoy. The decoy could save us, but risk Sentinel's integrity, letting hackers gut the system I'd built. My life's work or my brother's life. Horizon was crumbling. A rival firm, backed by the consortium, launched a hostile takeover. I leaked their plans to investors, buying time. Sentinel itself seemed to turn on Nathan, flagging his actions in logs, almost like it was protecting me. Was it sentient? I'd coded it to learn, but this felt personal. Flashbacks haunted me. My first startup, stolen by a mentor I'd trusted. That betrayal had forged my distrust, my need for control. Now, I demanded 30% equity, a board seat, and Sentinel oversight. Nathan balked, offering 10%. I threatened to walk. The USB my trump card. After a midnight legal showdown, I won. The contract was signed, my terms locked in. I restored Sentinel with the USB, adding new safeguards. It now reported all admin changes to me, a digital leash on Nathan. The NATO demo was a triumph. Investors clapped. NATO signed a $2 billion 0-cents contract. I stood tall, but the war wasn't over. Nathan's eyes burned with resentment, and the consortium was still out there. The USB was safe, but for how long? I walked out of Horizon's tower, Boston's skyline glittering. Sentinel was mine again, but so was the target on my back. They'd come for me, and I'd be ready. The Boston skyline glittered beyond my office window, a constellation of ambition and betrayal. I'd won the battle, reinstated Sentinel under my control, Nathan's lies exposed. But the war was far from over. The USB drive, heavy in my pocket, was a reminder. Trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. Horizon Dynamics buzzed below me, engineers coding, phones ringing, a machine I'd built now humming with my safeguard. But Nathan Pierce wasn't done. Men like him never were. I'd heard whispers of Pierce Ventures, a shell company he'd spun up in the Caymans, a front to clone Sentinel, to steal my life's work and sell it to the highest bidder. My gut churned. 8 years ago, my mentor had gutted my first startup, leaving me with nothing but distrust and a chip on my shoulder. Nathan was worse, a predator in a $5,000 zero-cent suit, and I was his prey. Rachel, his assistant, was the key. I'd caught her lingering in the server room, her tablet glowing with Sentinel's interface. She wasn't just fetching coffee, she was pulling code. I watched her from my terminal, heart pounding, as she downloaded files to an encrypted drive. Nathan's orders, no doubt. I could have confronted her, but I played smarter. I planted fake code, useless gibberish laced with trackers. Pierce Ventures swallowed it whole, their servers lighting up with junk data. Sentinel's kill switch kicked in, flooding their system with decoys until their clone imploded. I leaned back, a grim smile tugging at my lips. Checkmate. But Nathan wasn't alone. Charles, a board member and Nathan's loyal dog, stormed into my office, his face red with rage. "You sabotaged Pierce Ventures," he bellowed, slamming a fist on my desk. "You're a liability, Carter." I stood, unflinching. "Prove it, Charles, or get out." He didn't have proof. I did. At the next board meeting, I projected Pierce's transactions, bank records, emails, Rachel's downloads. The room went silent as Nathan's name glowed on the screen, tied to the shell company. Rachel, pale in the corner, stammered denials. The board's eyes turned to Nathan, his charm crumbling. "I didn't blink. He tried to steal Sentinel. He betrayed us all." The vote was swift. Nathan was ousted as CEO, Rachel fired on the spot. Charles, humiliated, slunk out. By noon, I was named interim CTO, Sentinel's future in my hands. The engineers, once wary, rallied behind me. Sarah, my intern, grinned as we rewrote protocols. Marcus, still guilty for his betrayal, worked overtime to prove himself. The victory felt hollow. I'd won, but at what cost? Ethan's wedding was tomorrow, and I'd miss it. Another sacrifice for Sentinel. The guilt gnawed at me, echoing the graduations and birthdays I'd skipped. I called him, voice cracking. "I'm sorry, E. I'll make it up to you." He laughed, soft. "You always do, sis. Just stay safe." Safety was a fantasy. Rachel, bitter and vengeful, leaked partial Sentinel code to a rival firm. I caught it mid-transmission, my fingers flying across the keyboard. Sentinel's defenses held, but the breach exposed vulnerabilities. I patched them, reinforcing the system, but the damage was done. Tech blogs speculated, is Sentinel compromised? Twitter churned with, "Sentinel leak," bots amplifying the chaos. I countered with a press release, framing it as a failed attack. The narrative shifted, but the threat lingered. The FBI cleared me that week. My evidence, Nathan's consortium deal, the doctored logs, debunked his frame-up. Nathan wasn't just disgraced, he was indicted for fraud and corporate espionage. Headlines screamed, "Horizon X CEO faces 20 years." I should have felt vindicated, but all I felt was tired. The board made my role permanent, granting me a seat in Sentinel oversight. I embedded ethics into the AI's core. Transparency, accountability. No one would weaponize my work. At a company event, a young coder, Mariah, approached me, eyes wide. "How did you fight back? How did you not give up?" I paused, the room fading. Because I had to. Sentinel isn't just code. It's my promise to protect. You don't give up on promises. The healthcare deal came next. A $2 billion zero-cents contract to secure medical data. At the launch, I took the stage. no longer the fired coder, but Sentinel's creator. The crowd roared, investors shaking my hand, NATO reps nodding approval. My name was on every patent, every press release. I'd cemented my legacy. Then Marcus dropped a bomb. "It was me," he said, eyes downcast. "I was the whistleblower. I sent you Nathan's deal." I froze. Marcus, who'd leaked my plan, had also saved me. Redemption wasn't clean, but it was real. "Why?" I asked. "Because you deserved the truth." The high didn't last. A foreign government, unnamed, shadowy, probed Sentinel, their hacks testing its limits. Logs showed intent, weaponization. My fight wasn't just corporate anymore, it was global. Sentinel could secure banks, hospitals, grids, or destroy them in the wrong hands. The stakes were dizzying. I rallied Horizon's team, no longer a lone wolf. "This is our line in the sand," I said. "We protect Sentinel, or we lose everything." They nodded, united. Marcus proved himself, uncovering the government's plot. A back-channel deal with the consortium. I confronted their agent in a dimly lit cafe, his accent clipped, eyes cold. "Sell a Sentinel," he said. "Name your price." I leaned in, voice steel. "It's not for sale." He smirked, but I saw fear. Sentinel pinged my phone. Threats neutralized. Integrity restored. I exhaled, the weight lifting, if only for a moment. The personal cost lingered. Ethan sent wedding photos, his smile bright, my absence a ghost in the frame. I vowed to be better, not just for him, but for myself. Protecting Sentinel wasn't about ego, it was about peace, about ensuring no one else lost what I had. My story spread, inspiring coders, engineers, dreamers. At a conference, I closed with a challenge. Guard your work, make them remember. The crowd stood clapping, their faces alight with purpose. I walked off stage, the USB drive still in my pocket. The consortium was out there regrouping. New threats would come. But I was ready. Sentinel was secure, my team was strong, and my name was carved in history. I'd guard my work, and I'd make them remember. The stage lights dimmed, and the applause from the healthcare deal launch still echoed in my ears as I stepped into the quiet of Horizon's executive floor. Boston's skyline stretched before me, a jagged silhouette against the twilight, each glowing window a story of ambition, sacrifice, and survival. I'd done the impossible, reclaimed Sentinel, ousted Nathan, secured my legacy. But the weight of the USB drive in my pocket reminded me this wasn't the end, it was a beginning. Forged in fire, and the flames still licked at the edges of my world. I sank into my chair, the interim CTO's office now mine, its walls lined with framed patents bearing my name. Lauren Carter, creator of Sentinel. The title felt like armor, but it couldn't shield me from the ghosts of what I'd lost. Ethan's wedding photos sat on my desk, his smile radiant, my absence a shadow in the frame. I'd missed his vows, his toasts, the moment he became someone's husband, all because I was here, fighting for a system that could save or destroy millions. The guilt was a knife, twisting deeper with every missed call, every unopened text. I'd promised to make it up to him, but promises were fragile things, and I'd broken too many. The fight had changed me. 8 years ago, when my mentor stole my first startup, I'd been naive, trusting, a coder with stars in her eyes. That betrayal had carved distrust into my bones, but it also taught me to build walls. Walls that kept me safe but alone. Nathan's betrayal, Rachel's revenge, Marcus's duplicity. They'd tested those walls, cracked them, forced me to see that strength wasn't just in code or contracts, it was in the people I chose to let in. Sarah, my intern who'd stayed late to debug with me, Marcus, who'd risked everything to blow the whistle, even Ethan, who forgave me when I didn't deserve it. They were my anchors, and I'd nearly lost them to the war I'd waged. Sentinel itself was more than code now. It was a mirror, reflecting my choices. I'd embedded ethics into its core. Transparency, accountability. Because I'd seen what happened when power went unchecked. Nathan's consortium deal, the foreign government's probes, the rival firms' takeover bid, they weren't just threats to Horizon. They were warnings of what Sentinel could become in the wrong hands. A weapon, a tyrant, a god. I built it to protect, but protection demanded vigilance. Every ping from its logs, every threats neutralized, integrity restored, was a vow I'd made to myself. I'd guard this creation not just for me, but for the world it served. The global stakes loomed larger now. The government's probes, nameless, shadowy, but relentless, hadn't stopped. Their hacks were surgical, testing Sentinel's limits, probing for a way to twist it into something monstrous. I'd confronted their agent in that dimly lit cafe. His cold eyes and clipped accent burned into my memory. "Sell us Sentinel," he'd said. My refusal wasn't just defiance. It was a line in the sand. Sentinel wasn't for sale. Not to him, not to anyone. But the consortium was still out there, regrouping, and I knew they'd come again. The USB drive, my insurance, was safe in a hidden vault, but its existence was a ticking clock. As long as it existed, so did the risk. I thought of Mariah, the young coder who'd asked me how I fought back. Her question had stripped me bare, forced me to articulate what I'd never said aloud. Because I had to, I'd told her. Sentinel isn't just code. It's my promise to protect. But it was more than that. It was my defiance against every Nathan, every Charles, every mentor who'd tried to erase me. It was my refusal to let my work be stolen, twisted, or forgotten. Mariah's eyes had shone with something like awe, and I realized I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for her, for every coder who'd ever been underestimated, for every dreamer who'd been told their work didn't matter. The healthcare deal had been a triumph. $2 billion, 0 cents. A standing ovation. NATO reps shaking my hand. But it was the stage moment that lingered. For the first time, I wasn't the fired coder, the framed saboteur, the woman escorted out in shame. I was Lauren Carter, Sentinel's creator, my name on every patent, every press release. The crowd's roar had drowned out the doubts, the betrayals, the sleepless night, but it also reminded me of the cost. I'd missed Ethan's wedding, just as I'd missed his graduation, his birthdays, the moments that made us family. I'd won the war, but I'd lost pieces of myself along the way. Marcus's confession had been a turning point. I was the whistleblower, he'd said, his voice heavy with guilt. He'd betrayed me once, leaking my plan to Nathan, but he'd also saved me, sending proof of the consortium deal. Redemption wasn't a clean arc. It was messy, human, real. I'd forgiven him, not because he deserved it, but because I needed to. Holding on to anger was a cage, and I was done being trapped. He'd earned my trust now, uncovering the government's plot. Standing with me when the stakes went global. We weren't friends, not yet, but we were allies, and that was enough. The team I'd rallied was my strength. Horizon wasn't just a company anymore. It was a fortress, built on trust I'd earned the hard way. Sarah, now a lead engineer, coded with a fierceness that reminded me of myself. The others, veterans and new hires alike, looked to me not as a boss, but as a leader. We'd drawn a line. Sentinel would never be a weapon. We'd protect it, not for profit, but for principle. That unity was my greatest victory. stronger than any contract or board seat. Yet the personal cost gnawed at me. Ethan's wedding photos were a wound I couldn't close. I'd called him after the launch, my voice shaking. "I'm sorry, E. I'll be there next time." He'd laughed, soft and forgiving. "You always say that, sis. Just stay safe." Safe? The word felt like a taunt. Safety was a luxury when the consortium was still out there, when government saw Sentinel as a prize. I vowed to do better, not just for Ethan, but for myself. I'd spent years sacrificing life for work. But what was the point of protecting the world if I lost the people who made it worth saving? The conference where I had spoken, where I had issued my challenge, "Guard your work, make them remember," had been a turning point. The crowd's standing ovation wasn't just for me. It was for the idea that one person, armed with grit and purpose, could change the game. I'd seen it in their faces. Coders, engineers, students, dreamers. They saw themselves in my story, in the woman who'd been fired, framed, betrayed, but never broken. I'd given them permission to fight, to claim their work, to make their mark. That was my legacy, not just in code, but in the fire I'd lit in others. I stood, crossing to the window, the city sprawling below. The USB drive was my secret, my safeguard, but it was also my burden. As long as it existed, I'd never be free. The consortium, the government, the next Nathan, they'd keep coming. But I was ready. Sentinel was secure, its ethics locked in, its logs pinging me with every threat neutralized. My team was united, my name cemented in history. I'd fought for this, bled for this, and I'd won. But winning wasn't enough. I thought of Mariah, of Ethan, of the coders who'd email me late at night, asking how to keep going. My fight wasn't just about Sentinel. It was about showing them they could fight too. It was about protecting not just systems, but dreams, promises, the things that made us human. I'd guard my work, yes, but I'd also guard the spark in others, the spark that said, "You are enough." I pulled out my phone, texting Ethan, "Dinner tomorrow. My treat. No excuses." His reply came fast. "You're on, sis." I smiled, the weight lifting, if only a little. The consortium could wait. The government could scheme. I'd face them, but not tonight. Tonight, I was Lauren Carter, sister, creator, survivor. I'd made them remember. The city glowed, alive with possibility. I turned from the window, my reflection sharp in the glass. The fire was still burning, and I'd carry it forward, for Sentinel, for Ethan, for every coder who'd ever been told to give up. Guard your work, make them remember. I would.